Welcome to Unstitching ADHD Urban Ed Talks. I'm your host, Dr. Stanley Akia. In today's episode, we are joined by Ms. Cooksey, a retired school leader whose passion for education continues to shine through volunteer work. With hands-on experience supporting students with diverse learning needs, our guest brings knowledge and heart to urban schools. Ms. Cooksey, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ikior. I am so excited to be here. Anything that will help our students to receive an outstanding, excellent education, that's what I'm all about. And I think information about ADHD is one of the hottest topics that we need to talk about so that our students can get the fair, equitable education they deserve.
I've always wondered, I've known you for a while, right? Most people will retire and they say, you know what? I'm done. I need to just take care of me. So please forgive me if I ask you to share not just a little bit about your background, but the story behind your career choice, this passion.
I would love to do that. I just want to say I often tell people that educators don't retire, they refire. And
Mm.
I am one of those educators that really believe that you are a lifelong learner and also a lifelong server. So even though I've chosen to actually retire about 2 years ago, I still know that there is a need for our students and the diversity of our students and also meeting the needs of our students. So I have vowed that if there's an opportunity for me to help students, I will definitely do so. I will be honest, what drew me to education was seeing a lot of children where their needs were not being met. And I always had a heart for children. Even when I was a little girl, before I would go into school, I would often play school with my siblings. And I would, of course, be the teacher. And I wanted my siblings to get the best that they could get. So I would take my time and teach them different things. But as I got older and I began to see the youth that are in our society today, I came in contact with so many youth that were disappointed because they couldn't read or they were failing in school or didn't have a lot of self-worth or knew the importance of who they were. And I knew that I had something within me that I can encourage these students to be the very best that they could be. So I actually started my career headed to be a doctor, but I found myself always wanting to teach the classes when I was taking the courses. So that's when I realized I had a love for teaching and a love for helping people to become better. So that's why I chose to become an educator.
How did you support students with ADHD during your time as a school leader?
That is an excellent question. One of the greatest ways that I had an opportunity to support students with ADHD or ADD is patience and understanding. Once I knew about everything that is associated with ADHD and ADD, and I'm still learning, just so that you will know, I knew it required a different type of person to work with these children, understanding that these children are not intentionally doing anything to disrupt the class. It is because they don't know how to filter what's going on in their minds. And oftentimes, because they don't know how to filter, they act out in certain behaviors. I understood that these behaviors were not intentional. So I would try different strategies with these children. Sometimes I would give them an opportunity to go on a walk. Sometimes I would allow them to get up, sit in class, and even scream. But my voice would always remain soft because I wanted them to know I hear you. I understand what you're going through, and I know you cannot understand what's going on, and you can't even explain it. But even though I can't explain it for you, I'm here for you. And I think that's the most important thing that a person can do for children is realize that they want to do their best. But oftentimes they don't know how to do their best. So that's why it's so important for me. And I think the greatest gift we can give these children is patience and understanding.
I want to know during your tenure, what were the kind of challenges you encountered?
Believe it or not, and oftentimes I would take students from other classes because I knew what they were going through. Many of my colleagues would often say that I was being too kind to the students. They wanted
Okay.
to discipline the students, and discipline is not the answer. The answer is listening to those students and helping them to maneuver through what they're thinking and what they're feeling. So I've often been quoted as being too kind to students, letting students get away with things. And it's not that. I want those kids to learn and I want to teach them how to learn.
What do you think will be behind that kind of mindset?
I think many teachers are frustrated because they don't know what to do with many of these students with ADHD. All they see is a child that's out of their seat, or a child that's not listening, or a child that is yelling out an answer, or a child that wants that constant attention, and they don't feel that they have the capabilities to meet the needs of that individual child. Even though, as an educator, we have to make up our mind that we're meeting the needs of every single child, even that one that can't stay in their seat. Also, too, they have to realize that we are not traditional teachers. Education and our children have changed so greatly over the years. So if a child can't sit in the seat for a couple of hours, let him stand if he chooses to, if that's going to allow him to learn. Let him go sit in another area of the classroom, even if it's a beanbag or laying on the carpet in the front of the classroom, whatever it takes to ensure that that child is learning. That's what I want the mindset of the teachers to be. And I think a lot of times teachers think that they will be judged if a person walked in their room and they saw that a child is in a beanbag or on the floor or not sitting up with, prostrate while they're teaching. And that doesn't make a great teacher. A great teacher is one that sees the needs of their students and do whatever it takes to make sure that their students learn.
I'm thinking about this popular phrase, cross applesauce, which means you sit still, you just listen and raise your hands, and I'm thinking most of those rules that go with crisscross applesauce are rules that are very exclusive to kids with ADHD because most of those rules are bordering on their characteristics, right? It's like telling somebody who has a cold not to sneeze, right? So now you're back trying to support after your tenure. Has there been any shift from what you used to know to what it is today?
I think we have a lot more information about ADHD, but even with the amount of information that we have, some people still do not understand what it takes to teach a child with ADHD. Many teachers want that child to be similar to, and for lack of better words, a robot. Go here, sit here, hands up, heads down, those types of things. And those are not the type of children we have today. Some teachers are getting it. I can't say that all are not. Many are getting the need for children to have the flexibility in their classrooms so that they can learn. I've gone into classrooms today where teachers have seats that actually sit on the floor and they have cushions and the students are comfortable. I've seen classroom where they have what's called like a wobble stool where children can sit on these wobble stools, and if they need to wobble while they're learning, they can do that as well. But I've also, unfortunately, gone into some classroom who still expect the traditional students in rows, heads down, quiet, not moving, only talking when the teacher talks. And that's just not who our students are today, especially those students that have ADHD. These students are on the move. So, as an educator, I need to be on the move. And sometimes it means me as an educator changing and doing something that's uncomfortable for me. Because when we are taught how to be teachers, we're not taught that, students will have ADHD and they will be all over the place or they will move or not sit in front of us. We're taught how to instruct. But the greatest thing that we can give a child on giving them instruction is accepting them for who they are and how they think and how they move.
Do you think the way we are providing training for teachers, for instance, classroom management strategy, do you think that is doing justice to what is going on now? Or would you support a system that is very specific? For instance, if we are talking to teachers, we are training with specifics to ADHD, right? So you're talking about kids diagnosed with ADHD and getting teachers to understand that. I don't know whether that is what's going on that you have seen, but I've always wondered why we have that blanket training and we're not specific to this diagnosis.
You mentioned earlier about a lot of teachers not knowing how to teach the ADHD child. I would say that is the greatest explanation that I can give right now. And even when they receive professional development on ADHD or how to teach children that are just different in the way that they learn, some go to the training and they get all excited, Dr. Ikior, and then they go back and for a little while they'll try the strategies. And if they don't see a change immediately, many will go back or revert back to what they know, their comfortability. And we cannot do that. It does take time for you as an educator to spend time understanding what does it take to teach this child? What does it take to teach this child how to learn? What does it take to teach the child that they learn differently and that they're not strange or they're not bad? A lot of these students feel that they are bad. I've had so many children that I know that have ADHD, and when they come to me and I have an opportunity to work with them, they'll ask me often, am I being good? Because they've been told so often that they are bad. They are not bad. They just need to know how to channel their energy. They need to know how to channel their thoughts. I do agree that professional development will definitely help teachers, but it can't be a one-stop shop. It has to be a series of training. And also not only a series, but it has to be a partnership with maybe the presenters or some specialists in the area of ADHD, actually giving the information, showing them different strategies, for actually visiting them in the classroom or seeing some of the students that are facing these challenges and giving them some specific strategies for that specific child or that specific classroom. Just like each child is different, every classroom is different. Every environment is different. And a lot of times, we as educators do not know how to even set up the correct environment for an ADHD child. It is our responsibility to not only meet their needs, but every need of every child in that classroom. And it means changing some things. It means, okay, I set my classroom up in September, but it's not working for my children. I have to rearrange some things, change the furniture, whatever it takes to ensure that that child is able to learn. And that can be exhausting for a teacher. And let me explain why. Because a teacher's job is not easy already. I've mentioned several times that they have to meet the needs of every child. That's a task within its own. But when you get those children with those different areas, I call them of special areas, you as an educator have to be willing to take the time to learn how to meet. And it might be one child in your classroom, but that one child is so important as well as the other 29. So it takes time. And I think a lot of times teachers don't feel they have time because of the amount of time it takes to prepare for a classroom anyway. But if we really want to help every single child, we have to be willing to go that extra mile.
I'm wondering if you have a memorable success story of a student with ADHD from your time before you retired, even though you're still
Working.
not fired.
You are correct. I have so many stories that I can share with educators and parents, anyone working with children, and I often do tell stories. I remember one student, and I was actually sharing this story with the staff just this week. It was a student, and this was an eighth grade student. And this child had gone through several years of education where teachers really didn't understand that he had ADHD, which is so sad that a child can get through eighth grade and no one understands that this child has ADHD. But they had other labels for him: disruptive, a nuisance in the classroom, a child that just doesn't want to learn. And some of these beloved educators even put him out of the classroom because they felt that he was too disruptive to the other students that wanted to learn. So as I was talking to this student in my office, I was a principal at the time, he just broke down and cried. He became so angry. He began to throw things in my office. Now, a lot of people will react to that, but I knew something was bothering this child. But I also kept the child safe. He looked me in my face and he says, "You have failed me." And he says, "The Rochester City School District has failed me." He says, "No one understands me." I will never forget that. It broke my heart. So I sat him down and I asked him, "What do you mean? What do you mean we have failed you?" He says, "No one understands me. No one understands how I think. Everyone expects me to sit still. Everyone expects me to do it their way, but no one has asked me how to do it or how I learn." Can you imagine as an educator having an eighth grade student who's experienced 9 years of learning and no one asking him, how does he learn? Now, that moment, and I was a well seasoned educator, changed my life. And it really, really made me begin to think, what are we doing to the children that can't learn like everyone else learns? So after I talked to the child, I also helped him to get some help with his parents, and I began to meet with all of his teachers. Because for so long, I was teaching him how to go back to a classroom. I says, "Okay, I want you to stay in the classroom today. I want you to sit and listen." Never did I say, "Let me go talk to the teachers and see what can be done so he can stay in the classroom." I was always coaching the student how to stay in the classroom. That's not the answer. We as adults are responsible. So from that day on, I made it a point that even though I was teaching teachers how to teach students, I would go the extra mile and teach teachers how to understand students and to listen to them and to form those relationships. I'm here to tell you, once I began to do that with this student, his life began to change. I often wonder where that student is today. I kind of lost contact with him, but he stays on my heart because he knew that we were not teaching him the way he needed to be taught. After that day, I will never be the same, and I am not the same. I made it a point that anyone that is in front of children, I will always teach them to really learn their children. We are not
Yes.
just teaching subjects, we are teaching children.
Thank you for sharing that. That's just a powerful story. Now let's talk about parents. In your own experience, especially interacting with parents, what do they share with you that it's impediment to them working with schools?
Oftentimes, the types of communication that many of these parents receive from school, unfortunately, is negative. Your child is not listening. Your child is not doing what they're supposed to do. We've tried several things. Come pick up your child. The child is not functioning in school and we can't keep him safe. When a parent hears those types of comments over and over and over and over again, the school often becomes the enemy. And that's why a lot of times parents refuse to pick up the phone when they see those numbers that come across their phone. Also, parents don't know what to do either. And if I'm going to be an educator, I have to educate all. So it means teaching parents that their child is not this disruptive child that no one wants to be around, but your child thinks and learns differently. even at home, giving them strategies or receiving from them strategies that they use at home to make their child successful. One of the things that parents don't understand is it's two different settings. Home is one setting, school is another setting. There are so many more stimuli, things that students with ADHD encounter in school. They encounter more people, they encounter more transitions, they encounter more different modalities while they're in school. And parents don't understand that. They're often say, well, at home, he doesn't act like this. They're different environments. But as an educator, we have to educate parents, invite them in not when the child is being disruptive, not when the child has been running through the school. Invite them in on those days when the child is being good. Or take the time to say, hey, I'm just calling you to say, Johnny had an excellent day today. Parents want to hear that. I can guarantee you, Dr. Ikior, no parents send their child to school to tear it up. This is a great opportunity for us as educators to work alongside a parent to help their child. Because I can also guarantee you, many of these parents, especially parents who are much younger, do not know what to do. And if
Mhm.
we have the solution, why aren't we offering them the answer?
On a final note, there are teachers, there are parents, there are policymakers out there listening right now. What will be your advice to these stakeholders as it relates to individuals with ADHD?
In a perfect world, I would have every single person that is an educator. And let me explain to you what an educator is. An educator is a school administrator. An educator is a school's secretary. An educator is a school custodian. An
Mhm.
educator is a TA or a paraprofessional. One that comes in contact with a child in school is an educator. I think we all should come together and be educated on how to help these children. Oftentimes, we target teachers only. And don't get me wrong, it is critical that teachers understand how to help and to educate children with ADHD. But that ADHD child is not only in contact with the teacher, that ADHD child might have a great relationship with the custodian. And that custodian can also offer an opportunity for that child to feel special and understand that they can learn. But sometimes the custodian may not know this is what this child is going through. And they might say, well, why is this child in class? This child doesn't want to learn. And those type of statements are made out of ignorance. So I think every single person that comes in contact with children should have this training and this professional learning opportunity. I also think that parents and teachers should work together in workshops. If we truly are going to be partners, I don't think they should be separated. I think there should be opportunities that parents can hear what teachers are experiencing and how they're helping their child. Parents can also offer teachers different advice in a professional learning setting so that we can really master ADHD. Learn how that child learned and make sure that we're doing everything within our power to ensure that that child is learning.
Wow, Ms. Cooksey, this is the first time I'm hearing this kind of proposition, and it's a great proposition. I can imagine parents, teachers, in short, all stakeholders being in a training that gives them
Together.
not just the opportunity to build that relationship, but to look at these things from the same lens and find themselves at a point where they can, speak from the same level, of understanding. I hope those that are listening, I'm sure most of them that have the power to make those changes will grab that that proposition. That's a powerful one. Thank you so much for your insights. It's been a wonderful time, and I Hope when we call on you again, you will be open to coming to share your wisdom with us.
I am open and I'm excited and I love sharing anything that will help us to help our children.
Right, thank you. So, thank you for joining us on this enlightening episode of Unstitching ADHD Urban Ed Talks. As we weave together the threads of education, remember that every stitch counts. Whether you're a retired school leader, a passionate volunteer, an eager listener, your presence adds to the vibrant tapestry of learning. Until next time, keep unraveling, learning, and stitching hope into our urban schools fabric. Thank you for tuning in.